Good evening, welcome to another Boots on the Ground. I'm your host Gimbal B. This week I'm joined by Zatara Rot. How's it going?
How's it going, man? It's going great.
It's going good. We're also joined by Revere,
Hey.
Kane Spiro,
Hey.
and Soroya Zal.
Hello.
So yeah, I mean it's been a couple of weeks since Uprising. We've only done one Boots to the Ground since it landed, and we have a whole bunch of new people here tonight, so I just want to kind of go around the table and ask people like what they've been playing and do a discussion, kind of like last week. So I'm just going to start with Soroya. How have you been playing Dust since 1.8 dropped?
I've actually, as bugged as it is, I've been playing with the Forge Gun very heavily, since 1.8.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using it as well quite a lot. I have run into that bug you mentioned, though.
As long as you hold it a bit past where it looks like it's ready, it'll go off okay. But I'm actually surprised I didn't spend time on it earlier in my gameplay because back in Chromosome I was a sniper, and now I have a sniper that one hits everything and also kills vehicles. So.
I mean, just to touch on the thing you said there, it really doesn't go off every time, even if you hold it a bit longer, sadly. But I'm sure it will get fixed at some point, won't it, Kane?
One can only hope.
But yeah, I mean, one of the things I wanted to go into this week was AV in general. Like, how have you been finding like killing vehicles since the change to their hardeners?
I've found that at the very least it's somewhat rewarding, because even if you spend the whole match going after two tanks and or a tank and a dropship or what have you, even if you don't kill them, you end up racking up a fairly decent amount of war points for your effort, which means you get a halfway decent reward for it. It's still, swarms are still pointless. I tried to pull them back out again. I have pitifully a very high proficiency in swarm launchers, which means, I'm very sad about those skill points, but they'll come back to me someday. It'll be useful someday. But the big thing is that I am actually able to get something for wasting a whole match going after vehicles.
Yeah, and I especially like the change regarding LAVs and giving you war points, because you get like 150 for damaging them, and then 40 when you kill it.
Yeah. I don't know how often I get a second tick of the 75 war point vehicle bonus before killing a lav. I'm not sure what there's a threshold for it, because usually with a single forge blast I don't get it. I usually get the bonus on a consecutive forge blast, and I usually only think it takes like 3 to kill most lavs.
I guess maybe I've just been running a terrible forge gun fit, and thus getting more points because of it.
I'm very jealous if that's the case.
Well, I do like the fact that when a vehicle turns on its hardeners, it's like it makes it even more of a point pinata. It's like you almost want the vehicle to have its hardeners on.
Yeah, it does have that certain appeal of like, I want to shoot this thing right now, even though it's a bad idea.
Ammo gets in the way of that eventually, though.
This is true. I mean, everybody else here, like, going into swarms, I've actually been finding swarms pretty good. Although I run them in Commando with the complex light damage mod, so maybe I'm a bit biased there, but like
That makes a really big difference.
it really does, yeah.
I mean, running a commando fit with AV is just it just makes sense that you can go about your normal business, and if a vehicle comes out, just switch and hit that instead. The forge gun gives you the same capability all the time, though, and it hits a heck of a lot harder when you hit a tank with it.
This is true. But like, I still think swarms are somewhat viable, at least. Maybe they could do with like a little bit of love, but I think maybe we just need better like alternatives for different races.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think they could use a lock-on range buff, though.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And plus, I don't know whether they fixed swarms from the bug that was reported by Judge Radamanthus a couple weeks ago in that video that Hans brought to my attention. That swarm damage is not operating correctly.
Okay, so
It didn't hit a patch note at least, but he may have to retest that. But it definitely needs the lock-on buff because it takes less than a second for a dropship to go from next to you to out of the max range of a swarm. You just hit that up button and you're gone.
Yeah, the ammo capacity of the swarm launcher also makes it really difficult to use it as a full-time AV weapon because even having ammo capacity on my swarm launcher, I find that when I'm trying to move, the vehicle obviously moves as soon as I hit it once. It's not like a stand and deliver type. Most tankers aren't kind of like, oh yeah, I think I'm going to stand and deliver here and try to figure out where you're at. They kind of are on the move as soon as they get hit. And I just find that over and over, I end up running out of ammo capacity while they rep through my swarm damage because they round the corner and they've got enough time and there's only 2 in the clip, and so I'm reloading, and all of these sort of factors over and over have led me to sort of give up on the swarm launcher for the moment. I use my forge gun more than my swarm launcher just because of all of the issues I have making my swarm actually effective at ending a tank. I feel like I can do some support damage, but I never feel like I can actually end a tank the way I can with a forge gun.
yeah, it feels really good if you're paired with someone else. Like if I'm paired with a forge gunner, then like both of us open up on a tank and like we hit that really hard initial damage, and as soon as they start running away, the forge gunner finishes them off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, though, I think that if swarms had a longer lock-on range, you would see them used a lot more effective. They would become the effective anti-dropship tool. Especially with the fact that the railgun range being reduced. I think potentially a bit too much. I think that it's I don't know. I just think we need something that's kind of more of a geared towards like an anti-dropship kind of weapon, at least for those ranges and that speed. And I think just kind of having a parity with all of the AV weapons and kind of the tank weapons. Railgun, having a 300-meter range, then the forge gun having a 300-meter range, and then the swarm launcher potentially having. 300 meters, maybe it's too much, but I still think, it's something worth exploring.
Do you know what I found that's actually really effective at killing dropships that I don't think people have been running? Is small railguns on LAVs. I was running a match with Moody, was it 2 days ago? And we were running around in a lav, and we were both forge gun fit as well. So like one of us was always forge gunning, the other was always railing. But you could keep pace with them and like whittle them down, like while they were running away. It was actually really and that was a militia gun as well. So
yeah, the changes to the hardeners really did make a very large impact, especially with it helped eliminate some of the problems that people were having in terms of stopping, like on shield tanks, stopping the regen for the shield tanks and stuff like that.
yeah. Although there is one thing that I've been seeing a lot more recently, and I think that dropship pilot wasn't doing it because he was going down too easily, but I've been hearing a lot of dropship pilots running dual large rep. I don't know if anyone's run into any of those anyway.
I've at least heard of it. I've heard complaints about it in terms of it being very, very difficult to break through.
Has anyone else run into one of those yet?
Not that I can recall.
Okay, because I've run into the tank version of that where it's triple rep, and you just put forge gun rounds into them and you don't actually notice yourself doing any damage. So I can't even imagine what the dropship one is like. But
I'm gonna try the fit out. Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it's something like 2 complex and 1 complex power grid or something like that. Yeah, it's the armor version, and you can fit an afterburner on it too. I mean, it's super vulnerable to getting killed, like, instantly. Like, if 2 or 3 forge gunners, like, shoot it at the same time, it goes down, but I've just been hearing, like, people say they're amazing, and I've run into the tanks, like I said, who, like, you just put forge gun rounds after forge gun rounds into them.
Yeah, actually, I watched two blaster tanks going at it. One of them having that exact fit, I think, and it was just crazy watching. I mean, the health would go down with the blaster, and then go back up, down, and then back up, down, and back up. Eventually, the tank, the blaster tank killed the one with the repper, but it was insane how long it lasted, actually.
But yeah, I mean, I've been hearing people talk about nerfs to reppers and stuff like that. But, I don't know, like, I need to sort of see this more and come up against it more, because I think if you're organized, you can bring those tanks down really quickly. But anyway, like, aside from, like, forges and swarm launchers, like, have you guys been trying out, like, any other AV, or been talking to people who've been trying out alternative forms?
Remotes, they're fun. Jihad TPing and also just running up to tanks and dropping like 3 remotes and then back off and blow them up. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've been doing that as well. The cloak, I think, has really helped with that.
Yeah, it does. Sometimes I just run like a crappy fit and that has everything Melissa except for the remotes, and I just run up to them and like place the remotes on them without them even noticing me and blow them up like that.
But yeah, I don't know. Like AV seems like it's in an okay place right now. In general, I think. Would you guys agree that AV seems like reasonable? Like, I mean, the forge gun needs fixed, and the swarm launcher maybe a little buff, but
What about the plasma cannon?
does that even
cannon
exist?
love. Yeah, I know someone who tries to go around killing people with it for hilarity.
Yeah. I don't know, I feel like AV should be buffed a little bit again up because they over-buffed tanks and over-nerfed AV way too much. So like having like a swarm launcher and 2 force gunners trying to kill 1 tank and not succeeding, that means it's like way too overpowered. And with the grenades, it was like fine to like nerf the grenades to 2, but they shouldn't have nerfed the AV grenades because AV is already way too underpowered. The grenades, it should be a little bit more. Like they should have at least 3.
I think in the AV grenades case, it was more they nerfed its damage and then they nerfed all grenades, and I think they should maybe look at like bringing the grenade damage back up now that it's only 2.
Well, another thing in terms of the number of grenades you give to things, there is a certain point that suggests that specialty grenades should, in some ways, maybe give you 1 more than than the standard, locust grenade, because you are accepting a loss for your generic capability to specialize into it. I mean, you can't, or in usual conditions, you can't kill someone with a flux grenade, for example, or nor with an AV grenade.
I agree. I mean, I feel the same way. I think that due to the nature of an AV grenade, I feel like keeping 3 and keeping the damage would have been just fine. I would have preferred to see the results before they implemented a nerf to them. Because I do feel like, I carry late eye packs on my AV fits along with swarms, and I just don't. I feel like I see, incremental damage, but it's not enough to cripple a tank to make him leave. It's not. It's just not enough to feel like I'm actually getting a benefit, as opposed to a locust nade where I can cripple someone with a locust nade. And I just don't think plasma cannons are worth it. I've been surprised. I have a guy in corporation named Sergeant Kirk, and he used to be part of Synergy. And he swears by the plasma cannon, and he actually used it in a PC versus with the French, I believe. And it was absolutely hilarious. He was blowing up tanks with the plasma cannon. He was running on a commando suit, and just the way you were stating it, basically, running around with a light weapon and then swapping over to the plasma cannon if a tank showed up next to him. And it was really, really cool to see that happen.
Wasn't he the guy who said having a plasma cannon is like having 10 extra contact grenades?
It sounds like something Kirk would say.
I just remember someone in Eon saying that at some point. It might have been him. Yeah, how did you feel about them giving, let's say, the light grenade 3? Because nobody uses those things.
The light grenade meaning the
Light AV grenade.
I mean, like I said, yeah, I would love that. I think that AV grenades holding 3. I think Soraya's actual to parrot Soraya. I think that's his suggestion is a great suggestion. That if it's a specialty nade that you're sacrificing the ability to use the nade in an offensive capacity in multiple situations, so that you can only use it within one specialized situation. I mean, fluxes are maybe a little bit different. Where I think fluxes having 2 is fine. But and I only have the AV grenade specifically to refer to as maybe a specialty grenade in the sense that I am suggesting. But in the future, if they were to have like a type of grenade that caused the tank to stop moving, like an EMP grenade or something like that, I would want it to have the capacity to run 3 as well. The same way
Maybe
as
like a grenade that stops people's radars working or something.
That'd be sweet, yeah, because you're not offensively attack. I mean, you're using it as a sort of in a specialty purpose and not technically to. It's not like an all-purpose grenade. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, one of the comparisons that just to go out there a little bit is I've heard people suggest more than once that they introduce like a flashbang grenade or a smokescreen grenade or something like that. And the question whenever something like a flashbang gets suggested is, well, if you're going to hit them with a grenade, why not just hit them with the grenade that's going to kill them? And that's kind of my question with regarding flux grenades. I mean, they have additional utility, though, in terms of catching equipment, and hopefully maybe someday doing something to cloaked users. I would like to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me the AV grenade issue, I think a lot of people, it almost feels like CCP was reacting to the spam from nanohives, right? So you're spamming from the grenades, so maybe you get down to 2. I almost wonder if maybe AV nades would be. To me, I always imagine AV nades being something that has a very, very, very short throw distance, but has a really high amount of damage. So it's basically acts like a "don't tread on me" type of weapon, kind of like just to prevent tanks from just rolling all up on top of somebody. I think you might end up with a better balance. I think if you had them with high damage, very low short range, and didn't let them have the ability to regen from nanohives necessarily. Although, I don't know, not being able to restock the nade unless you're at a supply depot may be too limiting.
Also, actually, this is just kind of a wild card suggestion. How would you feel about the AV fit, like the starter one, having an AV grenade instead of a regular one?
That would be awesome, I would think. It would get people used to, having. Problem is, the AV nade has to actually be decent. It can't be.
I don't know. I think there's a problem with the concept of making a fit, and this is from my own fitting logic, is that every time I go out there with something that I can't do anything to infantry, and it's just full AV, everything, then I end up getting mowed over by infantry. I don't get much AV done anyways. I think the point of putting a conventional grenade on there is to give you at least some sort of utility for when dealing with infantry problems.
You still get your sidearm, though.
Yeah, I don't know. Starter fits need a lot of overhaul, though, in general.
Well, it seems like now would be the time. It would be a great time to overhaul them because we have, we have all the racial suits, and we have
all the suits, a fairly decent selection of weapons. It's not
Yeah.
all the weapons, but it's enough to work with.
Yeah, it seems like it would make sense, you know. And not only that, honestly, I feel like the AV role on like there should be a militia. Of course, I don't know militia forge guns. I still kind of not sure how much. I still kind of have mixed feelings about them.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Didn't
Yeah,
there used to
see,
be?
honestly, with forge guns, I think it'd almost be. But I think some of the problem comes from the you have the breach, which is very long time, hold the charge. And then you have the assault, no holding the charge, and then you have the standard forge gun. I almost feel like the forge gun, like you would get rid of some of the infantry sniping issues with it if you only had the breach and the assault. Like the assault became like the standard variant, and then you had like the breach, and that was pretty much it. I don't know, but that's just kind of. I just think sometimes the one where you can hold a charge, it makes it almost too easy to execute the infantry sniping, because all you have to do is basically wait for somebody to get in the right spot, boom, let it go after you hold the held the charge.
I mean, it can be a bit of a noob too, because of that reason. But I don't know. I have really mixed feelings about it. Sometimes I really hate the idea of militia forge guns, and others I support it in the idea that because the skill of hitting infantry with a forge gun now, especially with after they nerf splash, has been a bit more nuanced than I think people give it credit for. I think it's really opportunistic with infantry, and I think it can be a bit of a noob in because of the fact that you can hold the charge, but while moving around and just waiting for the crosshair to light up. But I don't know.
They needed, and honestly, they need to just get rid of the fixed, being fixed when you're holding a breach charge. Just make it to where you walk really, really, really slow, because I'm tired of walking around seeing hopping breach forge guns. Because come on.
Oh, do they like jump and hold it?
Yeah, it's something that's silly that I've seen since closed beta. Or ever since the breach forge gun became a thing, anyways.
Yeah, that's kind of like when people do that with Nova knives, it kind of makes sense. Breach forge gun, not so much. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm trying to think if there's any other AV that we've missed.
The rail turret.
No, the rail turret's good. I talked about the rail turret. I talked about the good rail turret. The one that people should be using.
I think it'd be nice if installation turrets actually were designed in a way that they'd stick around more than 3 minutes into the match.
That would be nice.
I mean, go ahead.
I mean, is there any reason they couldn't have a massive health boost that made them, I don't know, maybe 2/3 of the durability of a crew or supply depot?
That's what I'd like to see, but the thing that you would have to do to balance that is you would have to kill the AI in them, because they're incredibly decent at killing both infantry and vehicles from pretty good range. I mean, I would rather see them as something that's hard to destroy, but only effective and useful when there's someone who goes and gets on it, so that infantry then have an anti-vehicle option.
I actually disagree. I like the idea of, I think of like turrets as like the closest thing we have to a drone. And that's what I think of when I think of like the turrets, being actually semi-decent. Sure, I think that they could be worse, as far as, they are actually really a bit super effective, maybe a bit OP as far as their effectiveness goes, but I like the idea of them having AI, and that, people caring enough to either blow them up and spend the time to get it done. But I definitely would, most of all, just prefer that if you kill an installation that has not been hacked, that it didn't give you the war points.
Yeah, it's because I've even been on PC matches where I'll go around and blow up the neutral turrets in order to get the warpart strike off.
Oh,
The
vehicle drivers in a team usually tell you, do not hack any turrets so that we can destroy them, so that we can get,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can farm almost a full OB off of it at the beginning of a match. Legend 345, which was, if you guys aren't familiar with him, he was like really great tanker, blaster tanker for team players for a long time, and that was like his opening thing was he wouldn't even focus on other tanks or accomplishing any other goal. Then here I'm gonna go get 16 to 1800 war points real fast. I'll be right back.
Yeah, that sounds pretty dumb.
Yeah.
My concern is that if you were to buff them, if the AI remained, I think you would either make it too powerful to the point that people are losing both infantry and vehicles for stupid reasons in many cases, especially in the cases where the turret was pre-set on a team before the match started, and hence no player interaction involved in you losing your however many 100,000 ISK tanks. And that the other thing is that as long as they have that AI, they are a good, target for a tank that has nothing better to do. I'm going to go kill all the turrets just because then they can't be a threat to me later. Is a viable, mentality. I'd rather see them be not worth the effort to destroy so that when a player needs them, they're there.
I think if you just took away the, you have to, if you were to implement the suggestion to take away the amount of war points that you get for killing a unhacked installation, a neutral installation, then people aren't going to kill them until they're hacked, right? There's just, maybe they would if they were a huge problem, but the other thing to realize is that, honestly, as an infantry, because I play infantry probably 95% of the time in PC matches and, outside in pubs, I never have a problem with the AI trying to attack me from a enemy installation unless I shoot at the installation. Have you ever noticed that? Like the AI actually targets me much better and is much more aggressive against me if I engage it, like if I shoot at it or a flux goes off at it or something like that. Whereas like if I'm just going around and running past it, it really never shoots me. I never have a problem with an enemy installation unless I call in a vehicle.
Does that include when it's, turret is in roughly your general direction? Because it doesn't seek you until it passes by, it's going fairly slow around a loop, and it doesn't try and hit you until it actually comes around and points at you. So you do have a lot of delay there, unless you shoot at it, that it immediately goes, shortest way to turn back to you.
Which is something, not to digress and tangent here, but if you also know, for people who didn't know this, if you're the fastest way, to target a installation in a direction that you're trying to get it in, especially once you've hacked it and you're actually trying to use it, you just shoot from the direction you wanted to point, and it automatically goes there, even if it's friendly.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a problem in the Squad Cup, I think it was. Like people would, or back when we were finding out which maps would be good for it. Like we shot a turret and it did like a 108 degree and directly pointed at the guy who shot it, which was
the turning radius is like much superior to when you actually try to turn it yourself within an installation, which makes no sense, honestly.
There is one thing I'd like to get in here as someone who likes to drive LAVs in matches, and especially at the beginning, is as soon as those enemy hack the turrets, you just can't drive around until they're gone, which I think is a bit of a problem because they hit you with pinpoint accuracy, especially red line turrets will shoot you and stuff like that as well. I don't know.
I almost feel like ideally, I don't know if you guys agree, but ultimately I'd like skirmish to go back to 1.0 skirmish, especially in the competitive format. And I think that if that was to take place, then I agree 100% with Soraya's idea that they should only be operated by people. They shouldn't have AI at all. Because if you're going to make it to the capacity where it starts off in skirmish 1.0 where it starts off as the enemy has the advantage and you're attacking them, and it's automatically going to be targeting you. That would be really hurtful. But I mean, I never run around in labs that much, so I can't really I'm the wrong person to really shed light on how difficult it is as like a lab driver because I never drive labs. I never have an issue with them as an ADS pilot, though. I can tell you that.
I feel like
Well,
you should
you-
drive lavs more.
You're above their firing arc in a dropship unless you're far enough away, and they've nerfed rail range, so that shouldn't be as big of a problem either. We need the AV turrets. We need ones that can hit dropships. Let's get that.
Where the pinpoint accuracy is really needed.
Hey man, they could just have like 16 swarm launchers taped together and be a turret.
That's what I think would be. I mean, no, balanced, obviously, not just yeah. But I mean, I could see it having an anti-air turret of some sort at some point when CCP has nothing better to do to work on this game. So
You know,
never.
The missile turrets really aren't. They're actually not too bad for taking down dropships. The missile installations. The spread is a bit much for them at range, but the impulse damage combined with the damage that they just do directly, they're not too bad at
But I mean,
knocking dropships out of the sky. They're not perfect though.
Angle's the issue.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Just for God's sakes, make it to where at least some of the turrets can look up more than what's going on right now.
Maybe have like a turret that's 2 small rails, and that one has like complete freedom of like arc.
Yeah, so it'd be almost like a AAA gun.
Yeah, which is like how anti-air guns are kind of designed in a lot of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Well, that's
feel
what I
like
was saying.
they should be able to shoot up a little bit more than they can. It's ridiculous how little they can shoot up.
Yeah, they are. It's like what? I was
They
gonna
barely
say,
go up. It's just weird. Like in real life, the tanks can actually shoot up. Like it should be a little bit more in the game. That would actually help out a lot with dropship because if a dropship gets hit, it just flies up and you can't do anything about it, and then it just comes back when it's fully wrapped.
yeah. I mean, like it's maybe like a 40-degree angle, if that.
Yeah, even if that.
Maybe like closer to 30 actually.
Yeah.
Okay, well we've talked about AV. I think Zatara, you should go run LAVs in pub matches. Like I think that's what we can take away from this.
I'll go try it. I'll make it a priority.
The LAV. Oh man, I still remember the LAV Expo match that you did, and I was like thinking to myself, these things actually could be pretty useful. I think it's something that's people really haven't explored. That
I really, really want to do a squad of 3 LAVs in a pub match. Like, I think they could actually tear, like, tanks apart and stuff like that if they were actually fit right.
well, I mean, I remember me and Nock would actually run around in a railgun LAV back when I think it was just before Uprising, and we would just destroy tanks. We would just circle them. And it was kind of hilarious. But that was back when the turret damage skills for small turrets were much more significant. Like the potential damage output was just much higher.
I just don't know. I haven't used LAVs extensively, like offensively at all. I've used them only as a transport, sort of like a throwaway BPO lab that I have to get me someplace. But the last time I did have labs, like, and invested in any skills, then it was back in like 1.3 or so. I want to say like July area, and that was when the murder taxis were everywhere. And it was nice because you could get enough tank on them. I don't know how much tank you can get on them anymore, and I know Logi labs don't exist, but
You can get, depends on your fitting skills.
how much do you normally run around on in your fit? Do you mind if I just poke you?
I mean, like, the basic one is you can survive rail shots. Like, even, like, the tankier, even, like, the heavier hitting rails, you can survive at least one.
Oh wow, that's not bad. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna have to try it out. I think the biggest problem that I would have with them is just that I'm biased against labs because I hate how often I see them used by heavies, and there's no time getting in or out of them. It's just automatic and it's momentary, and so there's no disadvantage to a heavy, just or anything really, but primarily a heavy, just because of how much DPS they can lay on you once they get within CQC range, and they just tear me up. I've been so frustrated with them a lot lately.
What needs to happen with that is like, okay, so small rail turrets are incredible against infantry. Like the militia ones just rip infantry apart, especially like heavies as well. Like a militia rail gun on like the basic militia one. Yeah, sorry, it's kind of late here. Will like 3-shot a sentinel, and they fire like super rapidly as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, the biggest downside to them is the ammo. It really.
Even then, like they have like 100 rounds, and then you need to go reload. And it's an LAV, so you can get to a supply depot.
There's 100 rounds?
It's 20 per clip, and they carry 100.
Wow, that doesn't feel like there's like any problem with ammo capacity. I don't remember the last time I ever needed 100 rounds to do anything. You know what I mean?
It chews through them pretty fast though. Those 24-round clips. Is that with
What's the rate of
skills?
fire?
Is that with skills though?
I didn't have any skills in ammo capacity anyway.
This is actually sounding pretty enticing. I might go have to try this.
Yeah, it's really good. Remember Moody made a video about them and everybody drove LAVs for a week and then everybody stopped that straight afterwards because I think 1.8 landed.
One of the things
I just want to finish my thought. I think LAVs will start becoming more popular, which will kind of counter that Sentinel style play because people will actually just murder infantry with them, and then people will start using proxies more. So you'll see like more like a kind of shift towards people using LAVs more. I don't know. Like I think they're great and people should use it's something people should explore anyway.
No doubt, because in competitive play, I can tell you, there's outside of a few people who have run them. I'm talking less than 1% of the time I've ever seen an LAV used offensively. More often than not, I see ADSs, transporting players back and forth on the outside portions of a map, especially on bridge maps between home point and alpha and enemy home point. In an ADS and then dropping them off and sort of transporting them that way. I've only seen labs a handful of times used in that manner, and it's actually something that sounds like we've been overlooking.
I mean, they're especially good on the maps that aren't in PC, so that might have something to do with it.
QQ maps in PC. QQ.
Yeah, the PC map. I hate the PC maps. I'm not gonna lie. Like the best maps are in faction warfare.
Don't get me started, Gimbal. Don't get me started.
Alright, we won't go into PC, and we've been talking about AV for like 38 minutes. So, sorry, Sororia, if you've been running other stuff, I don't care, or we're going to move on. Revera, what have you been running since 1.8 landed?
I began with running with the Logi like I used to, but it's been really frustrating, so I just 2 days ago I went in Scout. And with my first try, I went 29 to 11 using cloaks and remotes and the shotgun. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm getting a little bit better, even though I have some matches that are really hard. But yeah, scouts are really fun, and then remotes. I jump in Logi sometimes, but I have more fun in scout with the shotgun. I like being a creeper in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody who's tried Scout has said they love it, so I can't really blame you for trying it yourself. But it's good that you're having fun. I mean, that's kind of the important thing.
Yeah.
And I think you were telling me before the show that you were oh no, you said it earlier when we were talking about AV, sorry. It's 2 a.m. here. But yeah, they're a lot of fun, and I've seen a lot of people do fun stuff with them. And have you tried any of the new... I know Moody was doing MagSec bolt pistol and it was working really well. Have you tried other weapons on the Scout?
Not so much on the Scout. I haven't really spec'd into the new weapons. I just spec'd into the MagSec, but I think I don't really ever run it. I might have to give it another shot. I usually just run with the old weapons, I use combat, rail, and shotgun, but I've been mostly using just the shotgun lately. Otherwise, I use the combat. I'm not good with the rail.
Has anyone else here been running Scout?
Dude, all day, every day. At some point, it's my main suit now. I spec I spec 3 suits, but I guess I'll just focus on Scout right now. I run Cal Scout, and I spec'd it as soon as I realized that I spec'd Amar first, Amar Logi, and I played with it, and I tried out scanners, and I went into a pub match and realized that I was up against actually a squad of R&D, and pretty much all of them were running Scouts with cloaks. And so, obviously, I couldn't pick up any of them without a focus scanner. And I tried out the focus, and it was worthless. Absolute worth. It was just trash. I'm sorry. Like, I hate the focus now. It's worthless. Completely unusable. So I was like, all right, well, I know exactly what I have to do then. So I went and spec'd Cal Scout, and because I was on the fence between Galente and Cal, and I've loved it. I've loved every minute of it. I actually primarily don't use the shotgun because I used the shotgun for a bit and it was super effective, but I just hated the idea of doing what everybody else was doing, and I wasn't. I was going up against really good scouts and finding out that I was really, really bad against them, and so I was a little bit burned out against that. And so I started experimenting, and I use the mass driver now, and it is super, super fun. I love it to death. I can rooftop camp. I can use it like on the ground. Anytime someone uncloaks around me, I just like start backing up and shooting them right at their feet. And normally, the scouts that are closing the distance on me are the ones that don't have much tank, and the ones that do have a ton of tank are usually armor tank. So the mass driver has that bonus damage to it. And it's been a lot of fun. So I've been completely enamored with scouts. The only thing I've been disappointed in is that Galente scouts obviously have such a huge advantage as far as E-War goes, being able to get under my scans, even if I have quad precision mods.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like I need.
Scout,
Yeah, I
ahead.
run Gal Scout, and it's 1 enhanced damp and a cloak that I need to get under like everything you can throw at me.
Exactly. It's absolutely so frustrating. I'm really disappointed in it because I feel like that's a huge boon that you get, and there's nothing I can do. I mean, focus scanners don't even pick you up at that point, correct?
Yeah, literally nothing.
Nothing. And you still have 3 other slots. You're only using. I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about the cloak, but I definitely think that something that I personally want to see happen is outside of some change to cloaks that makes it so that scouts, shotgunners aren't so good at simply appearing and disappearing that quickly. Is I definitely want to see that reduction to dampening to your scan profile just removed or nerfed somehow, because I mean, I shouldn't be using 4 precision mods and getting no benefit out of the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, because after, you know, unless I don't know. I'm getting a bit off topic here, but that's the one downside to it that I've really not enjoyed. But other than that, I've been really enamored with the whole experience of scouting. I was a bit disappointed that I don't see assaults anymore. I don't know. Have you guys seen assaults as much on the battlefield?
No, there's really not a lot of heavy use of them.
Sometimes. I mostly feel sorry for them.
This was sort of something that I don't know, we talked a few weeks on Boots on the Ground about how assault bonuses were going to work, and I kind of expressed a little bit of apprehension then, and I think it's sort of, I underestimated how much apprehension maybe I should have had, because assaults are just totally overshadowed by scouts. I mean, even that, not only are their assault bonuses just not as relevant as scouts, but I mean, scouts compete with them on everything but total EHP. They can stack a bunch of tank and still run faster than an assault can with 1 basic plate. They have way better scan profile, way better scan radius, way better scan precision. They have better stamina, better
2
strength
equip slots.
Yeah, I mean, more slot. It's really disappointing just the way that it's panned out, with the way that scouts completely nullify the use of assaults. I feel like there's just I mean, assaults still carry a niche role, no doubt, and certain people are definitely still going to go assault like over scout. But I feel like for competitive use, assaults just don't really have a place on the battlefield until they get a buff that makes them have their own unique role within competitive play.
I find it odd that commandos currently have the damage bonus above really what assaults are offering, because you would think to some degree that the assault by its namesake, its lower tank, it's more focused fitting than you can do with a commando suit. You would think that it would be kind of the master of dealing damage, and right now it's not. I mean, with its weakness compared to heavy suits and its limitation that it can't have a second light weapon like Commando, or I would think it should be more fit towards a glass cannon type of thing than.
I actually think the Commando is more of a glass cannon, because like assaults can probably get as much health as we can if we stack mods, like both of us. And we're slower, we have less mobility. I can't jump over like railings at all. Like I have to run around, which makes me really vulnerable to like a lot of gunfire when an assault can just jump over stuff. I have a much larger profile, so scanners, like I can't get under scanners at all. So people always know where I am. Like we are kind of like the slower long range damage dealers. That's how I feel about the Commando, like playing as a Commando.
I want them to sort of both have their own unique role within being the penultimate damage dealers, though. I really want, like, maybe this is just my own idea, and you guys don't share it, but I really feel like Commando should be sort of like, have a bit, like, be somewhere in the tanky range, like more than, because you're right, like Imble, you touched on it. Assaults can get just as much tank as a Commando, if not more. Due to their slot layouts. And because right now, the damage mods have been nerfed to the capacity that they have, I just don't think that a lot of people outside of Commandos are running damage mods, outside of maybe AV fits. And so I think that Commandos should sort of carve out their niche role as DPS dealers that are sort of like the stand and deliver types, whereas assaults are sort of like, yes, we also are the damage dealers that deal similar damage to Commandos, but we need to have much, a substantial less tank and the ability to recover better. Not as much as Scouts, because Scouts should have the least amount of EHP comparatively on the field, and I think that's kind of broken right now because the amount of tank that you can stack on a Scout is just kind of laughable. It's like literally less, maybe 100 or 200 less than an Assault, and that needs to be fixed and fleshed out as well, but that's the way that I imagine that Commandos and Assault should play off of each other, is that, one should be the sort of one that can go into the fire and stand there for a minute and achieve his objective, whatever that is, whereas the Assault needs to come in, take some fire, and then move back, and then get ready to move on to the next engagement.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few thoughts about like how Assault should play, and I think one of them is they should have as good like regen as Scouts do, so regarding things like shield regen and stuff like that. Like Scouts have the ability to get out of fights much easier than Assaults do, and they have that opportunity to go and recover, whereas Assaults, like when they're pinned down, they're kind of pinned down, and I feel like they should be able to take some damage, get into cover for a couple of seconds, like regen a bit, and then get back into the fight more quickly.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that. And even fleshing out on that a bit, I wouldn't mind if Commandos, like if the difference between Commandos and Assaults was that Assaults got like Scout levels of regen on shields, or had a base rep that allowed them to get back to the fight faster, similar to the Galente Scout, or Galentes in general. I know they have different rep levels, but you know what I mean. But I almost feel like what if we considered giving the Commandos like zero delay on their shield recharging. Even if we nerf their shield recharge rate down to like 10 health a second, but they were constantly coming back. Like there was no moment at which you can effectively make it so they're not getting regen back on their armor and shields. I feel like that would make them the sort of tank that even if we weren't buffing them HP wise to the level that a Sentinel gets, it would allow them to be sort of fleshed out as that stand and deliver type of character.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm more of a, like, I stay far out of the fight and I'm the last guy. Like, the assault is the guy who's up in the enemy's face, like, dealing damage, and I'm more of a, like, sit back, far away, and use longer range weapons. Sorry. Like, I feel as though that's kind of like our role. We're not really meant to be taking damage in the first place, even if we do sometimes. We're just kind of like that long range support, as opposed to the assault who's more of like a brawler.
So being in that long range capacity, like, do you feel like their current tank is like amiable to their current?
I have like no issues with my current like levels of tank. I mean, I haven't played PC. That could be like the one thing that's sort of different, but I deal so much damage. Like, I feel like it's kind of the trade-off in that I deal a bit more damage and I don't have quite as good a recovery.
I definitely think that, I mean, if you build the niche of a character as being outside of the fire, you know, the heat of the battle, and sort of being in a position where it's not exactly a support role per se in the same way that Olaji is, but more as like a, I don't know, sort of like an assister of accomplishing killing goals, I guess. I'm probably wording that really poorly, but is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, and I like bring utility in the sense of like I can bring a light weapon and an AV weapon, and I can bring a combat rifle and a mass driver, so if they're camping around a corner or something, I can force a fight by like slowly whittling them down so that they have to engage or run, and they can't like hold the position.
See, I feel like that's like in the heat of the battle though, when you're that close. Like, I mean, mass drivers don't. I mean, don't get me wrong, mass drivers can hit a way far away, but I feel like if you're close enough to hit them with a combat rifle and pretty close enough to hit them with a short range mass driver, they're close enough to engage you too.
It's more about like where you engage them from at that point, because if you can get like high ground or something, then you can engage them from quite a long distance.
True, it makes sense. I don't know. I have my own opinions, and I'm not saying either of ours are right or wrong, but I don't have a commando suit. I didn't even play I'm really bad. I just tried to kill commandos during the event with sidearms and stuff, but yeah, just the way that they've been used in competitive play thus far. Like I said, Kirk runs one, and I've seen a few others that sort of are that sort of sitting up on a catwalk and shooting down and being removed from getting shot at back. But it makes it a bit tough because how often it's not a role that I can flexibly use within all of the situations that PC is going to present. It feels like once you're forced to put the suit within a CQC range, it feels like commandos definitely end up getting picked off really quickly by focus fire, essentially. Like in a 1v1, I think they stand a chance, but against scouts, I feel like scouts are definitely superior because they can get a bit less tank, but they have huge advantages over it. You can't see them; they're going to see you. They can hit you and run, all sorts of things like that. And the heavies obviously are just going to HMG you down. It's really tough to beat an HMG CQC right now, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, like if I'm close quarters, like I don't think I'm going to win fight. Well, I mean, I was going to save this for last. I think I will save this for last, actually, because there's some other stuff I want to talk about regarding the Commando and some fits. So I guess I'll ask you about your last fit, because you mentioned Logi and Scout.
Oh, heavy. Yeah, so I spec'd Galente Heavy for. I mean, if you remember a few weeks ago, we talked about it. How Galente Heavy seems to be the one that would have the most useful racial bonus for PC, and I definitely agree. I have level 4 of Galente Heavy. I haven't gotten Proto yet. That's what this week's SP event is probably going to be about. I have about 800k saved up, and I need another 400. So, but yeah, I've used it as an HMG and PC. I don't see a huge difference. I don't know. I haven't noticed a huge difference in scores between me and the other heavies when I've been using advanced versus their proto, because I still run a proto weapon, I still run a proto fit, on it, but I just have the less slots and CPU and stuff. But the nice thing about heavies that I noticed that I hadn't noticed before is that I can run pretty much everything proto on that fit. There is not a single slot that I can't run a proto mod on, as opposed to the world that I came from in Logis, where I definitely had that. I had to make those choices, and I liked the fact that other people were forced to make those choices too. With heavies, it's more a choice of what mods you choose, but you always know that pretty much, unless you're a Caldari heavy trying to fit 4 energizers that are going to take a bajillion amounts of CPU. I just feel like for the most part I have infinite flexibility about running whatever I want to run on it, and that's sort of been a nice, but I don't know, nuanced aspect of how I've played with it. I've loved heavies. Like, I feel really, really powerful as a heavy when in CQC. I feel really dangerous, and the only time I ever feel vulnerable is when I'm stuck trying to cross in the open, on open ground. And in those situations, I just call lab.
Have you, Genza mentioned this last week, have you survived a large rail shot yet?
I've never been shot with a large rail turret, to be honest with you. I mean, in a lav, you mean, or just as a heavy? As a heavy,
tank hitting you with a large rail.
Yeah, I don't think I've been hit with one, to be honest with you. Maybe I just don't play it enough, but because I'm primarily Cal Scout, like probably 75% of the time, but I've never been hit with one. Why?
Okay.
Can you survive, I'm guessing?
Yeah, apparently if you stack enough health and have enough of the resist bonus, like you just tank it and shrug it off.
Wow. I have survived REs, and that's been like a huge pleasant surprise, because I usually run Kin Cats as opposed to plates, and I still managed to survive. Like, I can't remember how many plates I was running this particular time, but I survived an RE, and I was like, wow, that was sweet, because every other suit that I run, it's a one-hit KO. It's not a question, but yeah, it's pretty nice.
Cool. Oh yeah, I've been hearing a lot of people talk about King Cats. We'll move on to Kane in a minute, but just how have you been finding the extra sprint speed?
It is understated. It's amazing, to be honest with you. Like, the funny thing about it is that, for example, day one, of course, what do I do as soon as I spec'd Cal Scout? I made a tanky fit. And it had about 760 EHP. And I was playing with my bud, one of the directors of my corp, and named Skeletor. And he runs a Galente Heavy with all Kin Cats. And he was actually sprinting faster than I was. And it was really, really funny. So he would actually get to the fights faster than I would in my tanky scout fit. And it was just sort of really funny. So I copied his fit. And except for obviously I don't have proto level, and it's really nice, because the downside of the HMG is that once you get outside of its optimal, it just doesn't feel like the same damage, or I have to crouch down and aim down sight in order to achieve the same amount of DPS and or similar amounts of DPS. You know what I mean? And so I've definitely loved the King Cat. I feel like I use King Cats way more than I ever want to use plates. I just stick one repper on there and run around with all the rest Kin Cats. It's super nice.
Cool. Has anyone here been running up against those at all? I'm guessing that's a no. So I guess we'll move on to Kane. Kane, what have you been running?
These days I've actually been running mainly Gal Scout, kind of a combination of Gal Scout, Gal Heavy, and Shield Rail Tank.
So have your experiences with the Heavy been sort of the same as Zatara's?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I would say there's some similarities too, and it's just I do find the Gal Heavy, it kind of moving away from the 2 high slots to the 4 low was kind of different for me from the way I was running it, because I actually didn't even skill into Sentinel until this build. Just didn't really see any point losing those high slots. So it's been a bit different in terms of my fit setup. I've actually have been running a good mix of Kincats, and I mean I have one suit that's like all complex armor reppers that's pretty interesting to play around with. The low slots just have so much utility to them, and it just kind of opens the door for all kinds of crazy fits that you can do with your heavy. You can even do a fat man hack suit, which is always kind of somewhat hilarious to effectively use. Probably the most common heavy fit that I run is probably 2 Kincats and 2 complex armor reppers. I have another one that's kind of has a selection of plates, various plates, but almost all of my heavy suits have a Kincat on them. There's just, you can't, having that speed, especially when you're running HMG, to be able to close that distance, you can't, you can't replace it. It's just a important thing to have.
Fair enough. You were mentioning utility with low slots. Have you tried a stealth heavy yet?
The last build, yes. This build, not as much. But it always was kind of funny sneaking up on people with a heavy suit. How many damps does it really? Because I know with the scanner profile change, with the scanner changes, it's hard. Well, I guess it's harder to get under a Gal Logi, but easier to get under others. I think last build I was running 2 complex, but I can imagine it would be similar to get under to be a stealth heavy. Just haven't done it this build.
Okay, Zatar, have you tried stealth heavy yet?
I honestly no. With the way the scouts work, I've just never had positive experiences trying to get under the Cow Scouts in competitive play. And in pubs, honestly, I just want to get to the fight as fast as I can, because in pubs, the disparity in experience is even in matchmaking right now, causes me to feel like the main point of my fit is not to worry about the enemy so much as just to try and kill him. It's not even a matter of, should I be worried about the enemy killing me? And this isn't egotistical at all. It's just it's more of a fault with matchmaking. But I don't know. It's just how many enemies can I kill? So I'm just running Kincats to get to the enemy as much as possible. If you get my drift.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess we'll move on from heavies. Kane, as a fellow Galente Scout, how much do you think we should be nerfed?
You see, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that fitting a cloak, you don't sacrifice anything. Like, I can fit a cloak on on my Gal Scout, and then I can pile up a whole bunch of armor, and I can put on, all I have to do is put in one good damp, and
Enhanced.
then and it's just ridiculous. And I think kind of like how your article stated, I think the biggest problem right now, there's 2 real big problems with the cloaks on the scouts and on any suit. It's one, the fact that it gives you a profile buff when you activate it, and 2, the speed with which you're able to switch from cloaking to a weapon and firing. I'm so freaking happy that CCP listened to the community feedback and did not implement cloaks with the ability to shoot while cloaked. That would have been horribly awful.
Oh God!
It would have been just an unmitigated disaster.
Oh yeah.
At least now the biggest issue is the cloaking shotgun scouts, and kind of the biggest problem I see is also the peekaboo scout. Like, you shoot, you decloak, you shoot somebody a bit, then you duck around a corner and you cloak back up again. it's just kind of it's just a gimmick, really. It's just a gimmick form of gameplay that I would like. It needs to kind of burn in a fire. But I think if on the issue of the Gal Scout, I think if you made it to where you couldn't be everything to everyone with it, basically, if you had a cloak and you still wanted to be stealthy, I think giving a penalty to when the cloak is activated would be a much better route to go, because then you would have to throw on damps to counter the penalty, and thus you would have less tank to it.
I agree wholeheartedly, Kane, and it takes a big man to call a nerf to his own suit. I don't know if I could do the same.
It's ridiculous, the things that I can do with the Gal Scout and the cloak at the same time, and it needs a look at. Now, whether or not the suit itself needs to be nerfed, I don't know. I would rather start with fixing that, doing that cloak change, seeing where we end up, and then going from there. I think sometimes one of the mistakes that CCP makes when it's balancing in-match mechanics and in-match items and stuff is that they kind of swing the pendulum very dramatically from one way to the other. I mean, and in that vein, maybe just eliminating the benefit, the bonus to the cloak, rather than necessarily going straight to a penalty. Although I do think that the penalty makes sense. It really does make sense when you look at the numbers and you kind of look how gameplay is developed as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I sort of hit that solution, like, fairly well. I'd like to see how it played out. I mean, it's just the numbers worked out really well, which was surprising.
Yeah.
But I do think the Gal Scout, I think I would like to see our 25% bonus to profile go down to a 20%, so like a 4% per level. I haven't actually run the numbers, but I think that would be like a nice little, if it does need further like looking at, that might be like another step they could take.
Yeah, that could be potentially something to look at. For me, I just the specific numbers themselves, I'm not sure, but I know that it does feel like it needs to be looked at. And if solving the cloak solves the Gal Scout, then awesome. If it looks like there needs to be more done, then more can be done. I had an alt that I ran a Caldari Scout on, and maxed out the scanning skills on it, and you really do kind of get that dynamic back and forth play, it seems, with the Cal Scout versus people trying to cloak up and stuff. But maybe it's almost too niche. It's to the counters right now. Like, maybe they need to be a little bit more available, so to speak.
Okay. Shall I just go for the stupid thing that I want to end the show on then? Because we've been going for like almost 90 minutes then. And it involves commandos and cloaks. And attacking out of cloak immediately.
Oh man. Okay, let's hear it.
They forgot to remove the melee damage bonus that commandos get in this patch. I think they were meant to. Apparently it was in a dev blog, but they forgot. So we still have our base 240 damage.
Oh no.
So an advanced Minmatar Commando can fit a basic cloak, a basic profile dampener, and 2 complex melee damage mods. So I now do...
How much damage is that?
698 damage per melee swing.
Are you kidding me? I've got to go and tell Fiddle about this. He's going to want to hear about this.
I think I see a shimmer. Whap.
Oh no. Oh no.
So,
can we edit this out? Errorona cannot hear about this. This is going to cause huge problems within the Dust community.
Okay, so here's the thing. I actually edited this out of last week's show, but I talked to Logibro since then, and he was like, "Oh, I can see all of your fits." And I went, "Shit." So, actually, it's worse on the Cal Commando, because that does like 980 if you have 3. But anyway, although like the one, like there's a few negative sides to the suit. One is that I can only fit a breach scrambler pistol, or flail up pistol, but those don't exist anymore. Um, so like I have a pistol as a weapon, like the basic pistol. Two is that even with that profile dampening, everybody still sees me, like regardless of anything. So like I'm like a giant blue shimmer that everybody can see. So the cloak doesn't really do that much. I don't even think I get under vehicle scanners. I'm not sure. But and like anybody who runs a squad that has a scanner, like I just die to. Like it's terrible. Like it isn't viable at all. I mean, like if you did the proto with like 2 proto profile dampeners, maybe. I don't know.
Do you actually get scanned in public matches?
In a Commando, yeah, because it's got the heavy profile.
Well, I mean, just from I mean, wow, I didn't even know that scanners existed anymore. I feel like I see like it used to be like pre 1.8. I feel like I got scanned all the time, like constantly, but now I feel like it's all passive scans. People have recognized that, and maybe this is my experience. But
passive scans can pick me up too.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just wondering if it's actual scanners, like you're walking around in pub matches and every match you're getting scanned down.
Not every match. If I go up against a squad, I get scanned. And if I go up against someone who's using a vehicle scanner, I get scanned.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I don't get scanned anyways because I'm a Cal Scout, but I feel like I never get the message prevented that much either. And definitely in competitive play, I never ever get scanned. I've still played PCs on a regular basis, and I never get scanned. From like an actual message, whether you got scanned or you got prevented, neither. I never get any messages. So it feels like there's been a significantly less amount of scanner abuse or just use in general. Does anybody else feel the same, or do you still get scanned just as much as you did?
If there's a squad, I get scanned, because when people run squads, there's always someone with a scanner.
Yeah, I still run on a lot of my FETs the flux scanner, mainly because it's just it's so good for the Crouton flux scanner because it's got one of the wider ranges. 2, you can still do a bit of a sweep. You can't do a pirouette with it, but you can do a sweep. So you can get almost 180 degrees scanned, and at 200 meters range, you're basically being able to pick up most equipment, and you'll pick up anybody who's not properly damped for it. So I don't know. I still see the value in that particular scanner. I just think a lot of the scanners with the cooldown time and the decreased, width and the snapshot kind of function, they kind of lost some of their utility. But I don't know. When you combine it with a Galante Logi though, and you have someone running, what it is people have switched to running multiple scanners, which really kind of makes the scanner work. I think they may have hit them in a nice spot, because before it was everyone was getting scanned all the time, no matter what. You're being scanned, you were scanned, scan defeated. And now it's a little bit more select. But, when it comes to PC play and stuff like that, you still have, the Gal Logi with triple scanners, it's still an asset, especially for point defense.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't run scanners since the patch, because I've mostly just been sort of dicking around, but I think it just comes down to cloaks and the Gal Scout just being a bit too good and getting under everything. So I haven't seen, because I know they got rid of the pirouette, so I actually don't know how that sort of played out overall. Does anyone here, aside from Kane, run scanners?
Not anymore, no. I used to always run them, but I don't do it anymore.
I sometimes keep the flux around, like Kane said, on my Marlogi pub fit, but it's the only purpose of it is it's not even to pick up equipment at that point. I don't know. The purpose of it for me is just I want to go find Theo redliners. So I just pop in one of those, or I go grab my ADS with a scanner on it, and I go into the redline and start trying to pick them up. But that's the only use I have for them, is trying to pick up a Theos.
So yeah, maybe scanners need some love. I guess, fix the cloak. I'd like to see them fix the cloak first and then look at scanners, I guess. But anyway, back to the melee commando. going around one-shotting like everybody is so much fun, and there's like such crazy like meta to it as well. Like if I can get behind a sentinel, he's dead. And if I can get on top of sentinel, there was a Logi repping a sentinel the other day, and I just charged straight headfirst into the sentinel, two-shot him, and then killed the guy repping him, who was like too panicked to switch away from his repair tool. It was hilarious. I don't know. Like it's just like it's awful. Like if you're against anybody competent, you'll lose. But like when it does work, it's hilarious, and it's like probably some of the most fun I've had playing Dust in the last 6 months. And I recommend everybody go and do it. I just want to see blue shimmers everywhere one-shotting each other. I'm trying to remember who here was playing Commando. Guys?
I don't play Commando. I don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't play Commando either.
I've had
I know a lot of
had
people.
one out, but I've had one out a bit, but I've been more heavily leaning on the Sentinel.
I think I'll probably spec it next if they're gonna. I hope that they nerf Galente Scouts, because honestly, Galente Scouts are honestly the best assault suit like in the game at the moment. But if they're not going to change anything for like months and months, I might eventually spec it. But I was planning on specking Mimitar Commando because I really wanted to see. One of my directors, Himiko, had spec'd Mimitar Commando, and he told me that he had a really positive experience with it, just using basic mass drivers and the amount of DPS that he was able to lay down. And I'm kind of intrigued about that. I might end up specking it, but at the moment I have zero experience with it.
Okay, well, it's fun for the people at home to go try out. I've racked up, I think, like 80 or 90 melee kills in the last 2 days. So there's a montage video coming at some point. But anyway, I think I'll leave that as the final note for tonight's show, and thank everybody for coming on. We'll be back next week. I'll be doing SGL over the weekend, so I might get some people on and we can talk about SGL. And then, after that, the week is FanFest, so I'll do a boots on the ground after FanFest, and yeah. Anyway, thanks everybody for coming on tonight, and we'll see you next week.